I lose the feeling, but I will do this question, by the way, for the guys who was a teenager and can listen us or watching us on YouTube. And so we talking about your son. How old is he now? 8?
He turned 8 in November.
Nice one. And thinking about, maybe I can start a BJJ career here in India, and I will become a pro BJJ fighter or pro MMA fighter or whatever they want. Uh, what you said for them, how to planning fighting career in India?
So, coach, actually, I just did a video where, a couple of fighters, were asking me this question about whether it's possible to be a, full-time fighter and stuff like that. And here's what I feel, coach. You know, it is a very niche sport. It's a very niche sport. It's going to take time to, become a bigger sport in the country. I mean, luckily he's 8. He's got a long time to decide. And I think by then the scene's only going to get better and bigger. And I from my end as a parent, I would like to encourage him in every way possible. But then again, coach, if when 8 years down the line I took the decision of doing this full time and being a coach and being an athlete, it was a tough decision because I gave up a corporate job which had all the benefits and perks of working in a corporate, and you have something put aside every month for savings and stuff. And so it is difficult. Obviously, it is difficult, coach. But this is what I said in my video, and this is what I say is, the only way you can do it is, one, by telling yourself that yes, you are going to be the best at it. Because if you're not, it's going to be very difficult to survive. It's going to be very difficult to pay your monthly bills, to put food on your plate. And that should be your motivation. If money is the motivation or popularity is the motivation, I think there are 10,000 other ways to do it than put yourself through this, because you're going to be, like I always tell everyone that, it requires special kind of people, literally the special kind of people to do this.
Yeah.
Imagine you need to wake up every morning and get excited about getting kicked in the face or getting thrown on the mat every day. And, it's, there are times when you wake up and you're like, man, do I really need to do this? Like, there are times when I ask myself, I'm 41. I mean, do I really need to do this? But those are the days when you just rely on discipline and go ahead and do it. You remember why you started to do this in the first place. So yes, I mean, I think for him, there is at least another good 10, 12 years before he actually decides on a career. And I think by then things will be better in India as well. But, one thing that I'll always tell him is that if he decides to do this, one, he needs to commit to this 100%. You can't be doing this and saying, oh, I'll do a day job and then I'll, go for a couple of hours and do my training. Because, this is what I've been saying is that it's like this, coach, if I do this and I go and fight a guy who's been training twice a day, putting in 3 hours, 4 hours of training, chances are he's going to whoop my ass.
Yes.
And so I need to take, if I'm training like that, my goal should be to be better than myself and not to be better than my opponents. And that's what I think the reality of our sport is. The amount of time you get given is the amount you're going to grow.
Yeah, I saw a lot of this mindset here also in Brazil, bro. The guys, they supposed to be BJJ athlete or MMA athlete, and they don't even understand the difference between a practitioner and an athlete. Practitioner, it's okay. If you don't wanna leave your job and go and do the 8 hours, 10 hours training, it's okay. Come enjoy with us. We have these discussions days before the lockdown, right? Some guys simply don't understand.
Yeah. So
That's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
even tell my
I
team.
can just enjoy the vibe. I can learn some techniques, even in BJJ, even in MMA, and it's okay. You don't want to go to the academy, to the gym, and be an athlete. Like you don't want to go to the waiting room and be a bodybuilder.
No, that's exactly what coach. I keep telling my other guys as well. So I have a bunch of these guys who, some of them are like really good musicians and they have a good career going already. Then there are some guys who are already working with corporates, and I keep telling them that, you know, there's no harm. You guys can do that, and you guys can do your amateur fights. Like I have a bunch of guys who know that this is not their career, but because they've been training, they want to do some amateur fights. I tell them that they should 100%. Like I have these whole guys who practice BJJ, and they have their day jobs and they want to do competitions, and they'll come and ask me, oh, should I do this competition? I'm not being able to train like the rest of the guys, and I keep telling them that, listen, you're never going to be able to. This isn't your career. You're
Yes.
doing this. Your goal should be to do this. I would say still do the competition, so that after the competition we can sit back and talk whether did you improve from your last competition, where did you go wrong, what we need to focus on. So do the competition, 100% do the competition, but be realistic. You're going to be competing against guys who are doing this as a career, as a profession. You might not always win against those guys, right? So but the goal for you should be, was I better than my last competition? What could I do to be better? So even if you're putting in 5 hours a day, how I can make best of that 5 hours to be better than my last competition. If your
Yeah.
goal is just to win a medal in a competition, then maybe don't do it. Then
Yeah.
and then I have a bunch of these fighters that want to do this professionally, and then this is what I tell them, that listen, if you choose for this to be your career, if you choose for this to be your profession, then like any other profession, you have to be obsessed with it to be good. And you have to do this full time. It's like a job. How many times, I mean, both we being 40 years old have done different jobs, coach. How many times do you get to go to a job and say, today I'm not in the mood, so I'm just going to go home, I'm not going to work? Or
Yeah.
my brother's not well, or my wife's not well, so I'm not coming in for work. I mean, those aren't even excusable. If you're a working professional, if you're working in a corporate, you can't call up your boss and say, listen, I have a little stomach upset, so I'm going to take the next 2 days off. No. And
Yeah.
that's how you treat any profession. That's even when you're an athlete, that's your profession. I might not be physically fit to go on the mat, but I can still go to the gym, I can still watch the training, and I can still learn something from it. That's
Exactly.
what I tell them, that if you want to be a professional, then you have to behave like one. You have to commit to doing this.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. Brother, if you don't mind, I want to talk you about your biggest phobia. It's really
I can't believe
you,
you're going to do this to
you,
me.
you really have any fear to flight?
Uh, yeah, I have you call as avophobia. So yes, I have spent the last 8 years of my life traveling mainly across Southeast Asia. Run through, I think, 3 or 4 passports, but I still can't get into a flight without panicking. So if I know I'm going to fly tomorrow, that panic sets in my mind today. I'm already thinking, oh, tomorrow at this time I'm going to be in the flight. So okay, so I'm not going to have any coffee because I need to get into the flight and go to sleep. I still have I've been prescribed a sleeping pill to take in the flight so that I don't panic. And yeah, funny stories around that, where I've popped my sleeping pill and then the flight's been delayed and I've gone out to sleep in the waiting area and my team has to carry me in. I've almost been deplaned because people think there are airport officials who thought I'm either drunk or drugged and I shouldn't be on the flight. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I'm still dealing with it. Yeah, I can't believe you did
And do
that.
you know and do you know the worst thing? The worst thing is that I shared this with you. This
Yeah,
is the
I
worst,
remember. I think the last time when you were in India, you flew Bombay Delhi, and that was a horrible flight. So I
Yes.
remember you getting off it and freaking out.
I can't forget this one, bro.
People
It's a
have tried
nightmare.
to tell me all these advices. Oh, read on flight, watch a movie. I'm like, no, 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 nothing.
Mhm.
If I'm not asleep, my seat is upright. I'm holding the seat in the front. It's horrible. It's
Yeah.
horrible.
We have a joke here on my team. Every time when I take a flight, I train in my grips, you know?
Same here. I feel more exhausted from a flight than I do after a sparring session because I'm like
Yes,
fully
yes.
tense sitting in the flight throughout, and when I get out, my whole body is sore, and I'm like, wow.
Then you can imagine when I float from India to Brazil, huh?
One of the reasons people keep asking me, have you traveled to the US? And that's one of the reasons I'm scared of traveling to the US. I don't know how I would handle a flight like that. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, flying all the way to China, which was about an 8.5 hours flight, was an absolute nightmare. I took my sleeping pill, and 3 hours in, I woke up. And I was like, for the next 2 hours, I was a complete wreck. And I was like, I don't care if I'm ODing. I popped a sleeping pill again, and I was out.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Bro, one thing, especially here in Brazil, we hearing a lot is about the ego. How in India you dealing with ego? I mean, by the athletes, by your. We know some guys turn to ex Team Relentless members. How you dealing with that? How your relationship on that matter about ego with your athletes? Let us know.
So, coach, I think one thing that I have with my athletes is that though we are in a democratic country, on my mat it's absolute dictatorship. Only one man's allowed to have ego, and that's me. So yeah, I mean, I guess, coach, I have always believed where it comes to ex-teammates, and people have had this question for me about why team relentless split and stuff like that. I've always believed, coach, that even as athletes and teammates, we have a role to play in each other's life, in each other's journey. And I guess at a point where somebody feels that my role in their journey or life has ended, and they move away. And initially, yes, obviously you feel bad and you have problem dealing with it, but over a period of time, I've somehow started looking at it from that point of view. Is that I would rather not spoil my training room or the environment of my training room because suddenly one of my teammates develops an ego, and suddenly he starts feeling bad if I check him in front of 10 members and say, oh, you're doing this wrong, can you not do this? Or listen, what you're doing is not healthy for the team. I would rather have that guy leave than have that one guy pass that mentality or vibe on to my other teammates. It's very important because, like I said, coach, most of the guys that I train with and are part of my team are quite young. They are very impressionable, and I think egos are always going to happen. I'm sure you and I have done things when we were 21 and 24, which have hurt our
Yeah.
pitches. And so I guess it's for me, I have come to understand that it's all part of, growing up, which I believe I'm trying to do. I don't think I've still grown up, but I'm trying to do. But yes, I am a little strict around egos on my mat. Whenever I see egos and tempers flare up, I tend to get down a little. Little more harder on that. I mean, it's when I say harder, it's not necessarily that I shout at the people or I, reprimand them. But
Yeah,
initially,
yeah,
I would let it go. I would think that it's between two teammates. But with my past experiences, I've seen that especially when it's between two younger people, it usually kind of builds up into a bigger thing, and it becomes it just starts breaking the team into two groups and stuff. So I have now started dealing with this a little more actively, and so yeah, I mean, it is. I think Brazil or India or anywhere, I'm sure egos are always a concern because I feel that it also comes with the point that once people achieve certain bit, some people get complacent with that, saying, oh, I'm a star now.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
the others, this is what I keep telling people, that It's okay to say I'm the best in the country. Oh, we are the best and we are this and we are that. But is that your final goal? Is that your final goal? You know, don't have a big fish in a small pond mentality. You'll always have somebody better than you, somebody who's going to wipe the mat with your face. So that's where you train with better people, so to keep that ego in check. So I had a very strange experience with somebody, obviously no names taken, and this guy was like, we were at a tournament, and we were at an Asian tournament, and this guy gets tapped out, and he's a white belt. He's good as a white belt, but he's a white belt, and he gets tapped out by
He
somebody.
pretends to be the best white belt in the
Yeah,
world.
I mean, he comes out of the mat, and the first thing he says is, I've never been tapped out in 3 years. This, I can't believe I've been tapped out. And I looked at him and I said, really, brother, you've never been tapped out? I mean, you're training with wrong people then. You need to start training with the right people. I mean, I'm a purple belt, and believe me, I get tapped out. I mean, and I'm not just saying this by people like brown belts and black belts. There are times when my blue belts and white belts catch me with something great, and I'm like, wow, that's good. And you tap, that's it. And I was really surprised with the way his ego was hurt, because he tapped out. Like, he was like, oh, I can lose on points, but I've never tapped out in 3 years, and I'm the best in my gym. And I was like, wow. I mean, that was like a shocker to me. Like, I think one of the best, and our sport is such where reality check is so important, because you're always going to have somebody better than you, or somebody who does, that one thing better than you, who's always going to tap you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Here in Brazil, we have a kind of joke. I don't know if make sense in English, but I will tell you anyway. We have 2 feet and one butt. That means you receive more kicks than you can defend.
Very true, coach. And that's what I keep telling my guys, that listen, you can't be happy being, oh, we are the best in the city, or best in the state, or best in the country. That there has to be a bigger ambition than that. You can't let that get into your head and start getting complacent and building an ego around it, that, oh, because then what happens is, the moment then the learning stops. I believe the learning stops, because then if I get tapped out, I'm going to start looking at excuses and say, oh, I was injured, so that particular submission worked on my injury, that's why I tapped. I'm not going to acknowledge that my opponent used a better technique, or my defense to that technique was not that good, and I need to improve that. And yeah, so
Or maybe your opponent surprised you and
yes,
did something really quickly, and you can
very
defend
very
yourself.
true,
Yeah.
very true. And for me especially, I think it has been a great learning, because keeping my ego in check, because see, I usually am the biggest guy in terms of my weight, and not maybe my whole physique, but I am one of the heavier guys in the gym. I am the more experienced guy in the gym. So obviously, that ego can come in very easily, saying, oh, I can't be tapped out by this guy, or I shouldn't be tapped out by that guy, or I have to. But and I have been trained. One of my longest training partners, Sushovan, is exactly half my weight, and one of the best roles I have is with him, because one thing that we have learned is to keep the ego out of the role. You know, there are times when I will catch him with something good, and he'll say, "Oh, that was great. You didn't even use strength. I didn't see that coming." He has speed to his advantage. I have strength to my advantage. Even he's a purple belt, so our skill levels are evenly matched. And what I try and do is I try and match him for pace, whereas he, at to his extent, tries to match me for strength. And I try and use a little less of my strength as I'm training with him. And we've just gotten to a point where we roll without having any ego, and we have a good laugh about it. So if I catch him with something, and we laugh about it, or he catches me with something, we laugh about it. And so I think, yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right, bro. And I'm think about this. Some guys try to turn their ego and said, no, this is my self-esteem because I'm an athlete, and I know I want to be up on my mental toughness and this and that. But
See,
bro,
Coach, one thing that
when
I
when when you lost the line, between, okay, of course, if you're an athlete, you want to realize, okay, I can do this really good, I can surprise my opponent and this and that. But on when you cross the line, that became bullshit.
Coach, this is what I keep telling my guys that, I think one of the best ways to check yourself and your ego is when, somebody gives you an advice or somebody is trying to tell you something. Ask yourself what is in it for them. What are they getting out of it? Are you going to be paying me extra for, talking to you about how to deal with a life situation? Are you going to be, when you become a big fighter, put my photo on your t-shirt or, buy me something? And if that person has nothing to gain from advising me, then maybe he's doing it to make me better. you know Maybe he's doing it for helping me, and that's where I should put my ego aside and maybe just try out what he's saying. And I guess, yeah.
Uh, Brother, a little bit outside of martial arts, okay? Let us know one amazing thing you can do. Like your what? What's your superpower?
Oh, I have a very good memory, coach.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, a lot of my friends and even my students are very surprised. I have a very good memory. I can, I'm bad with names, but I remember things that most people would forget, like where I've met you and what's the conversation we've had, to the minutest details. Somehow, yeah, that's one thing. I look at it as a curse and a gift, but it's something I'm blessed with. I have a very good memory.
Oh, very nice, bro. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. And the next question, you told us the amazing thing. Now the worst thing. When you want to do, you said, "Oh man, come on."
I think the worst thing of mine, I believe, is my mouth. I don't have a filter between my brain and my mouth, so I don't think before I speak. I speak whatever comes to my mind. Uh, you know, uh, so I guess I have offended a lot of people that way, and a lot of people have felt bad because I just say what comes to my mind. I'm not one of those guys who's very very politically correct all the time, or at times, yes, I do feel that it is also very insensitive. I don't think about other people and the kind of situation they might be, but yeah, so I'm kind of like the worst person to ask for advice because I'll tell you the way it is.
Yeah, yeah, but it is good. On the end of the day, you're talking with a genuine guy.
Uh, it doesn't work at times. Believe me, it doesn't work at times. At times, people don't want to interact with you because they know you're not going to be, you're not going to sugarcoat things, and it gets difficult at times to get your work done.
Yeah, yeah. It's true, but on my perspective, it's good because I know I talk with someone genuine. 2 or 3 days ago, I talked with my son about this. We said people all around the social media and all these things, they said, oh, human being is not honest. They not saying what they thinking. And then when we found these guys who said this, oh, this guy is very unpolite. They said many things. I don't like this guy.
Yeah, most
So
people say that, I'm very straightforward and, I like to give it the way it is. But, I think the challenge is not in being honest, but in, accepting somebody else's honesty. I like to give it as it is, but I don't like to take it the way it is. That's where the challenge is.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Back to fighting. What's your worst injury ever?
so I've had a couple of both my shoulders
No, the
dislocated.
worst, the worst one,
First,
the gold medal.
it has to be my shoulder dislocation. Luckily, I mean, it wasn't in fighting though. It was in the weight room. and I was training with a friend of mine who I can very proudly say is a complete idiot. Was he was probably checking out some women while I was lifting heavy. This was way back when I was younger and in my powerlifting days, and so I was doing an overhead press, and we were looking at about 3 rep maxes, and we were experimenting with some dumbbells, and so I had about a 150-pound dumbbell in my hand, and
Whoa.
yeah, and yeah, like I said, my training partner, who was a complete idiot, was checking out some women back then, and my hand kind of went like completely 180. And
Oh.
the best part was that nobody in that gym knew how to put it back. So in that pain, I kind of walked up and held the one of the machines, and I kind of put back my shoulder in, and then passed out with the pain. The good thing
Oh
is
no.
I dislocated my I kind of subluxated my shoulder twice in a tournament after that, but I was able to put my own shoulder back in.
Because you are already a master's degree on that.
Yeah, so just help me put it back in.
Right. And how long to fix this first one?
So the weird story around this, coach, is that when I got this injury, which was probably around 18 years back, 18, 19 years back, at that time the MRI machines in India were not big enough to fit me in, and
Oh,
so that time laparoscopic procedures had just started in India, and I met one of couple of doctors, and they said that, listen, if we have to do these laparoscopic procedure to operate on your shoulder, uh, we have to do an MRI. I tried about 6 hospitals in India at that point, and none of them, and it was very weird because I would lie down and then they would try and fit me in the MRI machine, and I just had an unfortunate thing that I couldn't get an MRI done. The second option was way back then was an open shoulder surgery, which I didn't want to do because that was 6 months of complete layoff and stuff
yeah.
like that. So unfortunately, I've just let that heal, and over a period of time, strength and conditioning has helped me. So as long as I'm doing my strength training and my conditioning, my shoulder holds great. But when there's a break from that, the injuries start coming back.
Yeah. But it was really weird, huh? You tried to find in 6 hospitals, you said?
Oh yeah, it was funny. I mean, it was really funny trying to get in those MRI machines. I mean, if you've been in an MRI machine, you already know how claustrophobic it can get. And on top of that, imagine not being able to fit in. So yeah.
Oh my. So let us know about your favorite fighter of all time.
It has to be George St. Pierre. I think, for me, I've always looked up to him. I think he's a true martial artist in the real sense. I have read his book, which was really inspiring. How he talks about, he talks about perfection, and he talks about trying to attain perfection, and that it's never possible, but then you can try and always get close to it. The way he's conducted himself across his career. And me and my coach Nick Kilseen used to have this argument way back when he and Anderson Silva were, actively fighting. Right? Who's a better fighter? He was an Anderson Silva fan, and I was a GSP fan. And if you think about it, there was a time, not really overlapping, but when they both went into a kind of break, and and that's when one day he comes and tells me, you are right, actually. Now that they both are gone, I somehow want GSP, waiting for him to come back, and I'm not as
Uh-huh.
excited about Anderson to come back. And I think that's the measure of a successful fighter. We tend to miss their presence in the cage when they are not there. you know I mean, everyone's great when they're fighting. I mean, there are so many greats across. When I started watching the Fedors, the Rampage Jacksons, the Crow Cops, the Wanderlei Silva, the Nugeras, it was just, the list was never ending. I think those legends were what made MMA into a sport that we love today. But I think for me, GSP will stand out always, always.
Agree, bro. Agree. We already has this conversation before, right?
Yeah.
When I'm in Mumbai, GSP is simply the amazing. He's a martial arts character. If you want to draw a martial artist,
Oh yeah.
draw GSP.
Yeah, I think that's the how a complete martial artist should be. It should look like, should conduct himself, and the mindset.
Yes,
It's crazy. I
yes,
mean, the obsession that he had of being the best, and and at the same time, it wasn't about putting others down. It was about him being the best that he could be.
exactly, exactly. So let's do a second coffee break, and we will return soon.
This episode of Jiu-jitsu Cafe Podcast is brought to you by BJJ Connections, connecting BJJ practitioners and athletes all over the world, including lifestyle, competitions, and much more. Follow BJJ Connections on social media for their amazing content. They are in Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And this episode of Jiu-Jitsu Cafe Podcast is also brought to you by Cervical Kimonos. Action is everything. The famous gi brand in the UAE and Middle East. Also, they are all over Europe and shipping worldwide. Cervical Kimonos. Action is everything.
We are back on our very first episode of Jiu-Jitsu Cafe Podcast with Mr. Jitendra Khare. So, Jitendra, let's return talking about food. What the best food for you and which kind of food you avoid?
I think anything that I can eat is the best food for me. Uh, no, so yeah, I'm a hardcore non-vegetarian, so I love my steak and I love my lamb, and yeah. So the best thing that I could uh, have is steak. I think anything with steak in it is my best food. Uh, you know, so uh, food that I can avoid, coach, I definitely, with age now and still wanting to practice, weight has become a big concern. I've always been on the heavier side, but 2 years ago, when I fought, I realized I need to lose weight, and I've always been struggling with that, trying to balance, a good lifestyle with training and everything. So I now I try to avoid junk food as much as I can. I know you're going to hate me for this, but I try to avoid Pepsi and Coke like somebody should. But yeah, so yeah, I try and avoid those things as much as I can. But sometimes, you have no option.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, just in defense of myself, I stopped to drink Coke and Pepsi. By the way, we don't receive any money from them, right? Since last Christmas.
Oh, wow,
So
that's
yeah,
huge.
for me it's a big thing.
I was surprised you didn't call this Jiu-Jitsu and Coke.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I wanna pay some royalties for for using that name. So, brother, which kind of books you are reading currently? No matter if online or physical book, and which books you can indicate for us?
So to be very honest, coach, I would like to sound like somebody very highly intellect and name some books. I am not a book reader. Believe me, that's the only way I can go to sleep is give me a book and one page down I would have fallen asleep. I am one of those guys who believes that if it's a good book, they'll make a movie out of it, which I can see.
Right, right.
So I think
That's
of
fair.
late, the only books that I have read have been around MMA. So the GSP's autobiography was one of the books that I read and I liked a lot and I recommend a lot. I've read The Fighter's Heart and The Fighter's Mind by Sam Sheridan, and I like those books quite a lot. And I always tell people to read that. There is a book which I have been trying to read for the last 6 months somehow, and it has never left my car yet. Is this book by which is based on the All Blacks, their mentality towards training and how the All Blacks started. I promised myself I'll get around to reading that book at some point. That book, and then there's that Mike Tyson autobiography, which talks about him and his relation with his
Yeah, that's
coach.
huge. That's huge.
Yeah, those two books, I really really want to get around reading it. I thought that this time would be the best time, but no, I haven't. But I will.
Nice.
I will get around to reading it. So I usually like to read books that are more around that talk more about mindset than about you know like just about a fighter or his techniques, or
Yeah.
talk more about the attitude, the approach, the mindset, what
Mm,
makes that person tick. And that's why I really enjoyed JSP's autobiography. There was just so much that about the man, and what makes that man great.
exactly. I agree. I agree. 101%. I finished a book here called Relentless. So I remind you, right? From personal training at Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, and a lot of NBA guys. His mindset is awesome, awesome, really awesome. If you want to read something different about mindset, read this guy, Tim Grover. Tim Grover. Tim Grover, give me a pen. So, brother, we just talked few seconds about this, but I want to know uh, how this idea come to our your mind and Praksha mom mind, and how is going on the BJJ Kids program over there. As I'm the responsible, I'm huge honored about this invitation. I said yes on same second. If you can tell to the people I'm wrong, I'll be very pissed off about this. And tell us about it, please.
So, coach, the whole idea came about when in 2 years back I was in Singapore competing at the ADCC Singapore event and the Dumao event, and the amount of kids competing there was crazy. Like the level. I mean, not just the numbers, the level was crazy. So we had done this event called Evolution Grappling Indian Open way back. I think I'm trying to remember. I think this was in 2015, 2016, and we had an entire kids section, and we had all these little kids that had done judo and wrestling who had come and competed, and it was great to see those kids compete. But then, to be very honest, coach, in everything, I could never get an actual program going for kids, though my kid has been training since he was 4 years old, but he kind of just always jumped into our class and did whatever he did. And I was one of the days, I was talking to Priksha ma'am, and I was discussing with her about the level of, the grappling that was there when I saw an ADCC, and, the way those kids were responding to coaching, when their coaches were cornering them. And, that whole relation, I mean, I can relate to it because I train my own son, and I see my teammates, how they relate to my son because they also coach him. So whenever he's on the mat, how everyone wants to corner him and how everyone wants him to do certain things in a certain manner. And I could see that so well in when I was competing in Singapore, and I was talking to her about the fact that it's such a great experience and stuff. And she was like, why can't we start something like that here? And maybe it'll take time to grow, because when you talk to schools and colleges that we are doing like right now, they're like, oh, we already have a karate program going, and we already have a judo program, or we have this guy who comes and teaches kung fu, and some guy teaching Shaolin and all these kind of things. And so these martial arts have been around for a longer time, at least in India, and so it's very difficult to explain to them about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and its efficiency and how it is practical in real situations of self-defense and things like that. But
Right.
so at that point we decided that let's give it a try. Let's start something. It needs to start somewhere. It always obviously needs to start somewhere. I'm sure that there are gyms who have some kids training and stuff like that, but there is no set program. And that's when I spoke to you and I approached you, and you immediately said yes. And what really was great was that you had a set syllabus. it's just so different than teaching adults, because with adults it's like, okay, last time you fought, what was the one situation? So we realize that, okay, as a team, this is one situation that we are having a problem with, so we go about drilling that for a month and then doing situationals around it. But with kids, they are like just blank slates. And I think also what was good was that when we both spoke to you, you were you emphasized on the fact that it's not just about techniques. Play is important, understanding the kids mindset. You can't be, oh, you have to finish these many drills, and but at the same time, there is a set syllabus, like which because see, I guess in India, and I'm sure it will be the same in Brazil, when parents put their kids in something which is so-called extracurricular activity, they pay
Yes.
for it, they want to get something out of it. So they want that, oh, at the end of the year, my kid, how do I show my kid has progressed? What has he done? Has he gone and even trained, or just the coach is just charging me money and not doing anything? So, having that syllabus helps, because, we know that, okay, for that kid to get that one stripe or two stripes or to be promoted, is he needs to learn so many techniques. He needs to know so many self-defense techniques.
He
And
need to deserve that, right?
yeah, and I think that also helped us, because when we talk to schools, when we talk to academies, like we've been fortunate enough to start with this play group and kindergarten academy, and which is Preksha ma'am went and approached them, and what helped us is showing them that there is a syllabus. We are not just a bunch of random guys that are going to come in here and do something, and at the end of the day tell you, okay, now your kid is good, so keep paying us. So
Yeah.
and like, with your permission, we did our first grading ceremony. Unfortunately, you couldn't be here because of all these issues, but and the group is still small and it's growing. Now the parents, initially for parents, we had tough time. Even like Preksha ma'am used to make it a habit of telling them that please don't call it karate, this is BJJ.
Yeah.
Parents would be like, oh, when do we get the karate uniform, and oh, what's he
Yeah.
doing in karate now? So but now it's the good thing is, these parents are talking to other parents and encouraging them to send their kids to come and join. And I think that's how it'll grow. And we are also talking to other schools and other academies. So it's been on and off about 8 months now, 8 to 9 months, that we've been working with this group of 10 kids. And it's like a good case study for us as well, and we are now taking this to other schools, and showing them that, listen, this is what we've been doing, and this is how we are doing things. uh, I think the response is slow, but I think it's a great start. I think it's a great start, and it's hopefully once things are back on track, we will also get back on track in with all these things.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that maybe the biggest thing I learned in BJJ is that quality is better than quantity. Of course, if you have 100 kids perform well, they really know what they are doing. It's perfect. But many times, most of times, if you have 10, 12 kids and they can do it well, doesn't matter if they want to compete or not, it's better than you, because I saw many guys with 50 kids on the mat. I said, oh, 50 kids, it's nice. Then they don't know, like, do a front row, an example, you know. That's not BJJ. That's what you talking about, right? Just leave your kid over there, and the end of the day, you receive nothing. They just play. It's not a playground. It's a martial art.
Very
That's
true, coach.
great.
And
That's
it's been
what
interesting.
I most thankful, because all of you teaching them the real BJJ.
Thank you, coach. And it's been really interesting, because because though Aryan's just 8, but for he's like a gray belt, and for these 8, 10 kids and their parents, when they see him training with the kids, and they see him training with us, uh, they are like, oh, I would like my child to be like that. So they have like an example Like, okay, they see
Yes.
him rolling and they see him doing things, and so it's been very interesting trying to, for me also, because that whole mindset change from training adults to training kids. you know
Yeah, it's pretty
believe me,
different.
it's 1 hour with them is more tiring than 2.5 hours with adults. Half the time you're
Yeah,
running around behind them trying to get them in one line. But it's fun.
exactly.
It's fun.
So, uh, brother, about your academy and your team, I want to know which message you can leave to them. Of course, you are in touch even on that pandemic situation, but just to register here a message on these days.
So, coach, one of the things that I tell them of late is, one, they need to keep remembering why did they start this, what got them into the sport. Remember that feeling of their first class. How they felt after the first class. Most of them, a part of the tiredness and all, you felt like, oh, I'm getting to do something that I wanted to do. That feeling of, finally being on the mat and learning something. And it's very easy nowadays to get sucked into all the negativity around us. There's just so much bad news around us, but that one good thing can just keep us going. And that's what I keep telling them, that understand that, maybe the online classes might not be of that intensity. I mean, I still believe it helps us skill wise, because a lot of us have learned to, drill better. A lot of us, like in striking, a lot of us are flowing better, because obviously otherwise, when you're in the training room, you're either hitting pads or a bag, or sparring. But what I tell them is that it's a good way of all of us just coming together in such bad times and doing something positive. Discussing things about training, discussing things about, um, the sport, discussing something that we all like in general. And for that time, maybe it's a disassociation thing, but for that time we disassociate with all the negativity around us, all the fear, all the paranoia, which these are the times we are living in. But at least the times when we are training, we tend to, forget all this and get over all this, and get to training.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right, bro. Uh, so, Team Relentless guys, that's the message. Follow the boss, please. Uh, Now I have a game to play with you. I call that the game. Okay. So I will give you 10 I will give you 10 questions. Please answer the first thing you have in your mind, okay?
Wow, this is going to get me killed.
It's a simple questions just to be a little fun. So let's start it.
Okay.
Gi, blue, black or white?
Black.
Nice. Gi or no gi?
Nogi.
I'm sure. Why?
Um, I think I can use my size and my wrestling a bit better in Nogi. In Gi, yes, you get a good grip on the Gi, and all that goes for a toss.
Right. Next one. Nicest academy or place you have ever been to train or compete?
My second home, Fight G.
Nice. Singapore. Guys, as soon as it finish, visit there. Which kind of song or which song in particular you hear when you go to your training session?
So there's a song which says, I walk alone. I think that's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Uh, your professor from Singapore is
My head coach is Darren De Silva, Coach Darren De Silva. Right now, my BJJ professor is Kelvin Yao.
okay. They are give them a quality.
Uh, for my coach Darren sir, he's like a father to me. He took me in when nobody else wanted to work with me. Everything I am is thanks to him. he taught me about the right mindset, about being a good coach. And my professor Kelvin, oh, he's a good friend. He's somebody whom I discuss, not just BJJ. Even when I want to grade my guys, he's taught me so much about how to learn to grade my guys, how to get in their mind also, how to approach the whole grading thing. Off late we've been having so many of these conversations. So he's a good friend.
Nice, really nice, bro. Next one. Your main goal on the BJJ life story. What will be?
I think before my journey ends, or before the final goodbye, I would love to see me and my son as black belts in BJJ.
Oh, nice. I will cry on this day, bro, for sure. But cry by emotion, of course. Um, Favorite city you have visit?
Rome. That place
Winter
has
or
just so much history, so much history.
right, right. Winter or summer?
Winter,
Why?
anytime. I sweat like a horse. Like, I know we humans don't sweat. We are supposed to use the term I perspire, but no, I sweat. So yeah,
Right,
winter.
right. Nice one, bro. You got all 10 points. You beat me. 10-0. 10-0, easy. So, my brother Jitendra, for finish that amazing podcast. I don't even know if the guys who listen or watching will enjoy as much as I could enjoy this very first episode of the podcast. So, before we said goodbye to them, let us know your goals for 2020, or maybe 2021 is more affordable.
2020 is to stay alive and
Yes.
get back to the mat at some point.
Same here, same here.
2021, if we manage to get through 2020, this seems to be like the year of the apocalypse. But if we do manage to survive 2020, I'm going to get myself a T-shirt that says "I survived 2020." But in
Good idea,
2021,
good idea.
yeah, in 2021, I would like to get back in the cage and do my second fight. I think personally, that's one goal for myself. And for my team, I would like to see, a couple of my guys, I think, who are ready for their pro debuts. I would like to see them make their pro debuts.
Perfect, bro. Perfect. So, my brother, I'm really thankful. First of all, because you accept my invite, and also because you did an amazing interview with me. I'm so grateful. I just wanna say a couple things to guys in India. If you in Mumbai, or if you have chance to go to Mumbai, please visit Team Relentless. Train with this guy. This guy is really amazing. He's fighter lifestyler, if this nickname even exists, right? And if you come to from abroad to Mumbai, please go there and train with them also. So, brother Jitendra, thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy, you and all your family. And I know as soon as they get under control, I don't say that finish because I think that'd be a long path. But as soon as they under control, I hope to see you.
Yes, coach, thank you for having me. It's been an honor to be on your first podcast. And thank you for all your kind words. It was great fun. This was great fun. And yes, we are all looking forward to hosting you in India soon.
Okay. Okay, guys. See you then. Bye bye. Stay tuned.
Bye.